Mr. Peter Welch, if you would, I yield to you.
Thank you. I appreciate very much, and I think all of us do, you having this hour to talk about Wall Street. You know, there's a couple of things about it that are obvious to everybody, both sides of the aisle. The salaries are totally out of control. $145 billion in bonus pool to the banks after they've been bailed out by the taxpayer is not acceptable. Everybody, I think, on both sides of the aisle is concerned about greed being too much part of the culture on Wall Street. On that, we agree. But the threat, the long term, is lamentable as the greed is unacceptable as $145 billion in bonus money is. What Goldman Sachs and others are doing is destroying what banks are about. Our American economy needs a financial sector that's strong and vibrant, but that lends money to entrepreneurs, to businesses that are going to create new products, that are going to allow for manufacturing to occur in this country, to families that are trying to buy homes. What Wall Street has done, in Goldman Sachs in this recent case about the filing of an SEC lawsuit of civil fraud against Goldman Sachs, highlights that they have gone from being an agency, an entity that lends money, to a gambling casino. And let's just talk about the structure of this abacus deal that is the subject of the SEC litigation for civil fraud charges against Goldman Sachs. This is a situation where a hedge fund investor who figured that the housing market was going to go south not only put his own bets against the housing market, but he asked Goldman Sachs to create a investment vehicle that was not distributing mortgages. It was not originating mortgages. It was just creating a pool where one side of the transaction bet that the underlying securities would go down in value, and then other parties bet that they would go up in value. And you know, you might say, well, they're just betting. And you know what? That's true. But what they're not doing is investing. What they're not doing is lending. And then as these collateralized debt obligations accelerate out from one buyer, one seller, one buyer, one seller, at the end of the day, or the end of the month, or the end of the year, when the music stops and somebody doesn't have a chair to sit in, it's the taxpayer that's left holding the bag. There is a vast acceleration of risk with no investment in any productive activity. Not a single mortgage was created by the abacus deal. Not a single new business was financed by the abacus deal. Not a single new company got seed capital or venture capital. There was no banking done. Why is it? What is the social purpose that is achieved by allowing this type of casino gambling to occur with the sanction of law and ultimately with the backstop of the taxpayer? So what this whole challenge to us is not just about the personal habits and overreaching on greedy salaries that many of those folks have on Wall Street. And it is even more than about getting our taxpayer money back, which we want to. It's about, are we going to have a banking system that's going to be there to lend money to folks and to businesses and entrepreneurs that need it and are about creating jobs. You know, I want to contrast the Goldman approach with the banks in Vermont. We've got community banks, and I know you do in California as well. I know Ms. Dahlkemper does in Pennsylvania, Ms. Speier in California as well. There's one in St. Albans, Vermont, where when you go into that big lobby of the old-style banks, and there's the teller windows, and there's some desks for loan officers, there's a desk that's slightly bigger than the others. It's the president of the bank. He's sitting right in the front hall. And anybody in St. Albans who wants to talk to him about a car loan, about service, about their checking account, they can go talk to him right away. At the end of the day, he feels good if his bank has made a loan to a farmer, to a family, to a small business. And you know what? That's the culture that I value, that I think Americans value. The Goldman culture is whatever it takes, as much as they can get. I yield back.
Thank you. It seems to be profit before people, profit before business. And for those of us in the Congress, It's really a question, where do you stand?
Yeah.
Do you stand with that community bank in Vermont, or do you stand with the big Wall Street banks? It was very, very clear. I'd been here 3 weeks when this House took up the Wall Street reform, and I was really surprised. I thought, well, everybody must understand the necessity to rewrite the reform package, to rewrite the rules of the road so we don't have another collapse. And I know that this side of the House, the Democratic side of the House, voted for those reforms. And on the Republican side of the House, very, very few voted for those reforms. So the question was answered to me, where do you stand? We were standing with reform. We were standing with reining in Wall Street, and our Republican colleagues did not want to go there. So what does it mean for Western Pennsylvania? Let me call upon the gentlewoman from Pennsylvania, Ms. Dahlkemper, if you would. You were here. What did all of this, how did this transpire? What took place?
I thank